Alan Quinlan, good morning to you.
Morning, lads. How are you?
You can look at this two ways. Brian O'Driscoll, Johnny Sexton is like 37 and near the end of his career, and aren't we all in the doo-doo very shortly? Or, as Brian O'Driscoll says, he's playing just as well as he's ever done. His vision is unbelievable, and we have him for another World Cup, and fingers crossed he stays fit, and we could end up having the best out half at the World Cup.
Yeah, look, it's a pretty strong endorsement, and you'd have to agree with a lot of it. I think he's obviously incredibly driven, and he's got a resurgence in his career. I think a lot of the Irish players in general, I think, were struggling in 2019 with the World Cup, and the whole thing just felt a little bit flat. And when you put that much pressure on yourself, and you've got that much kind of drive and determination, and that's your temperament, where you're a little bit, you show that frustration sometimes. I kind of worried for him around that period, and I think most people did, because he was kind of into his 30s, and he was 33 or 4 at that stage. That, you know, maybe there's a real need now to change here. But we've had a number of years, Adrian, haven't we, where we've, you know, all the provincial coaches and all the Irish coaches, and they've tried to close that gap. I think there was a period of Conor Murray and Johnny Sexton for a number of years that we always spoke about the gap between the two of them. You know, they were on 2 Lions tours together. It was 13 and 17. Murray was there in South Africa as well. Warren Gatland has admitted that he made a mistake in not bringing Johnny Sexton to South Africa. So they've been at the top of their game, and he has been at the top of his game for a very, very long time. So that dip, which was not an individual dip, but it was a team dip, and it was worrying and concerning. But, you know, when you have, and Johnny will be the first to admit this, you know, he's playing behind incredibly intelligent, good rugby players who are on the same page. And I think that's always been maybe a frustration for him, particularly when he went to France, that other people don't get on the same page. His vision in the game is what impresses me. He's always scanning, always looking. So, yeah, it's brilliant at the moment. And I think he's... I was at the Sharks game last week in the RDS, and, you know, you think it's early season stuff, and just do the basics, ship on the ball, kick well. But he's driving the team, and he's driving himself to look for opportunities all the time. So... you know, I don't know how he personally feels. Has he got a resurgence given, you know, like I was there in New Zealand up close, and I interviewed him before the first test. And, you know, there's a natural feeling here that you think this is a pretty daunting task. There's a lot of good Irish teams have been there before. How will this work out, you know, away from home? And I just felt, you know, he's such a strong character, and that kind of rubs off on players around him. And I just felt that he believed that they had a great chance in New Zealand, and if they played to their potential, it wasn't a case of hit and hope stuff. If they execute and do what they do well. But they become a strong, cohesive unit, Ireland, particularly after that rebuild since the World Cup in 19, where there was a lot of fragility there, and there was a lot of vulnerability, and opposition teams sensed that. It doesn't guarantee that they're going to go right to the World Cup and do brilliant. Sport is kind of cruel sometimes like that, Shane.
Just on that, on Sexton, the Sexton temperament, and there's been myself and Adrian before you came in, we're talking a little bit about referee abuse and talking to referees and that sort of thing. Somewhat discussion has been made around the way Johnny Sexton spoke to Craig Evans last weekend against the Sharks. What's your take on that? Because you're probably right in what he did, in that he's the captain, he can speak to referees, but I guess it was the tone of it that people had an issue with. But what was your take on it?
I think and he's had a few issues over the years. He knows himself, and he's not stupid. I think even after the game, he'll probably know that he's kind of pushing it a little bit here. I would have had those frustrations when I was playing. If I was captain of the team, maybe it's probably why I wasn't captain of teams, particularly in Munster. I captained him once, and twice actually. Declan Kidney said to me in Belfast one time, I don't think there was anyone else to do the job, and he kind of looked around and said, well, look, what do you think? And I said, well, we both kind of said this is risky business here because you're actually giving me a license to go at the referee and communicate with him. So it's a tough job, and like he's so driven and he has that temperament to challenge everything, coaches, players around him, and then you're a captain of a team and you've kind of that license.
But the point being, he has a license. A lot of the stuff I saw last week, look at my view, it was like the people giving out about the whinging. Like, what is he expected to do? It's like I got an avenue to go to talk to the referee, to raise concerns. Like, why would he not do that? He'd be in dereliction of his duty if he's not.
You know what? If I was on the team and I had the frustration, which I did have sometimes over certain decisions, I would love to have a captain like that who would go up and put the pressure on.
Queries. I saw Johnny Holland doing some analysis of the decisions during the week.
He just needs to be careful because
tone was the tone, was it?
Tone a little bit, and I think if you go up into the international stuff, and sometimes you'll get the referees, you know, and I know this goes on with referees. They obviously talk to each other. They watch the games and they say, "Well, I'm not having Johnny Sexton in my ear all day now, so." Before the match, they'd come in and say, look, I'm telling you now, Johnny, there's a way of doing this because it's gone out and everyone's watching this game and don't make my job any harder and all that kind of stuff. So you'll get some of that. And he's had a few issues with that over the years with some referees. Peter O'Mahony's had it. He's very confrontational as well. It's getting the balance of that right, that it's in a way...
You think he's over the top?
No, I don't think he's over the top. I think he just has to be careful with the tone. I think putting the pressure on and asking the questions, I think that I've no issues with that. He's quite entitled to do that. He just has to be a little bit different where it's not over. See, I want, as I said, if I'm a player there, I want my captain putting that pressure on. But if you turn the referee a little bit and he says, well, Johnny Sexton's asked me 6 questions now, like, you know, like Johnny, you don't have to ask me the 6th. I can't change my mind. Say
but
it to me at a different time.
the referee's part. If I look at maybe I'm overstating it, but I definitely feel as if you're entitled to have a line. If the referee isn't able to have an adult conversation to say, you know,
Absolutely.
like, here's my thought process around this.
Absolutely, that's the tone. And I've always said it when I had issues where I would have complained about penalties or I'm moving the hands and stuff. At that particular moment, there's a lot going on in the referee's head. He's just made a decision. He's been looking at a breakdown. There's probably numerous offences he can pick. He could pick one. It's like having an argument with someone when it's heated. You just want to make sure that you keep it at a level it doesn't frustrate someone.
Yeah.
There's been a couple of times over the years in some of the international games where we've heard Wayne Barnes like continuously saying, Johnny, stop, or whatever. So you just got to be careful. I think all the questions were legitimate last week. There was one where Luke McGrath made the break and Johnny Sexton put him away. He got a heavy tackle. There was a breakdown. Werner Koch, the winger, the Sharks winger, gets back and he poaches the ball. And Johnny then is making the point that one of the Sharks players didn't roll away to prevent him from cleaning him out. You know, sometimes there's ones there that, you know, you can make the point rather than saying it should have been different. Just say, look, I couldn't clean the player up. So look, like I say, I'm not critical of this. I just think he needs to be careful.
I thought you'd love it. I thought it'd be one man.
No, because come here. That's exactly what and I remember one great incident when I started playing for Munster when Mick Galway was captain, and I think we played Ulster and Interpro down in Limerick, and there was a number of things going on in the game early on, and there was a fair bit of niggle, and I was kind of like, I think Galway was trying to hold me back a little bit and keep me in some way control. And I remember he went up to the referee and said, you need to sort this out now or we'll sort it out.
Right.
And I remember thinking, even though it was a very strong statement, it was a message to the referee that this is getting out of hand now and I'm giving you a break to this point. And
that wouldn't wash now. That would be he'd be put to the
say that nowadays. But look, I love his drive.
Yeah, if he's got an Ireland shirt on, I do think, like, I saw some of the interaction. Some of it was coming from South Africa. That's stuff that you were talking about, whinging from South Africa, from a rugby writer who's since locked his account so nobody can give him any guff. But that's fine. But I do think that, like, if he's got an Ireland shirt on him, the whole country's going, come on, Johnny.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the one for the Van Rensburg where he had the 2 tackles and the sending off, absolutely, you got to be strong and dominant there, where there was 2 actions of foul play from the player, and it's fine the player being very remorseful afterwards, but like, you're thinking he's just hit the first one was a red card alone, and then he's over on the wing and he's like, another tackle.
Yeah.
So, you know, he has to be really strong there as a captain to say that this is not good enough. I'm not accepting this as a captain. You know, now, in fairness, Craig Evans, he sent the player off. And I think he's a very good referee. He's a very good referee. And he should have said something to Johnny if there's an issue with it, and I don't know if there is a major issue with it. He just needs to, I think the tone and the find the loads of interaction. And there is times where you need to put that pressure on, where it is kind of, people can hear it as well, and it does put pressure on the referee.
He drops out of the squad for the Connacht game tonight, 7:35 Sportsground. The Leinster team doesn't look any the weaker without him, I have to say. But I did want to ask about one of the other players that drops out, Jason Jenkins. I know he was injury prone last season. Have Munster made an unbelievable error getting rid of him?
Well, it could do,
or letting him go, however it's come about. Why did they let him go?
I think it's down to budgets, but it's also down to, trying to get Thomas Ahern through there and get more game time. RG Snyman is back, so if they get everyone fit and available, if RG Snyman is playing for Munster at the start of the season,
maybe nobody's asking.
Everyone's probably saying.
But the thing is now he looks so good for Leinster. He's fit.
Listen,
and he's
Adrian. We all knew that was going to happen, didn't we?
Yeah.
You know what I mean. Even the player himself has spoken about his frustration that he didn't get a chance to kind of play enough with Munster. I think Munster have been incredibly unlucky with some of the signings over the years, and going right back to when you think Christian Cullen came, certain players getting long-term injuries, and it's the worst possible scenario when you're a team that needs that overseas player to really kind of make a difference. When you're bringing through younger players, you're trying to change personnel and improve as a team. If Jason Jenkins is out for Leinster for a couple of weeks...
I know, we're having a different conversation.
But even if he's injured for Leinster now till after Christmas, they're not going to be usually suffer from that. But look, it's there's Thomas Ahern was brilliant in the emerging tour, so that is the hope that Snyman comes back. Thomas Ahern is there. There's Finian Wycherley, Tyg Byrne, Jean Klein. You suddenly have 5 or 6 second rows, but you don't have... Jason Jenkins is quite unique, and he'll be very strong for Leinster this year.
What about that? So Furlong in, Doris, Ryan, Cohen and Van der Flyer all into the pack. Ross Burns at 10. Connacht has made a bunch of changes as well, but that Leinster pack, it's hard to get beyond, even though it's in Galway, thinking that Leinster are going to win this tonight. And the strength of
but Connacht, I think it's really important, and I think that game last week was vital for Connacht as well. Obviously, we spoke a lot about how it was vital for Munster for some of the same reasons, but I think for Connacht, they've got Scarlets at home next week. It's going to be difficult tonight, even though there's changes and it's not as strong as Leinster could go. They played them 4 times last year, didn't they? The closest they went was in the round 16 game at home. They're well capable of it. I think they'll have a great crowd there again tonight. They'll have that energy, that fire. But they can't forget where they were for the first three games, Connacht, in the discipline, the mistakes, the turnovers, all that kind of stuff, the errors they made. So I think for them, it's about them focusing on themselves tonight. Sometimes you can get caught up with looking at a Leinster side and thinking there's a couple of players out here and there's a couple of players not playing. I think that's the real intrigue for me tonight, how Andy Friend's team respond. They've gone to with 6 forwards on the bench again. I think their pack was really good last week. Gavin Thornbury, who you think is the size and the physical specimen that you want to step up with an Irish side, has had a bad injury last year. He's been a bit stop-start. Has he the ability to really kind of stake a claim now and get real leadership in his game and physicality? Well, it's a great test tonight, when you think that that pack, that Leinster pack. I think the backs, there's obviously a lot of change, but the back row of Conan, Van der Flyer, Doris, James Ryan, Ross Maloney's been playing brilliant for him. Tyg Furlong coming back. Dan Sheehan is just like a a Duracell bunny that never stops going. So it's a challenge. I thought Dave Heffron was brilliant last week. Someone I'd love to see him step up. I think he has that ability to start having a presence with himself. Finlay Beelan played really well, and I think, you know, obviously Peter Dooley and Josh Murphy, you know, they're playing against their old team tonight. Will that bring a bit of spark in them? And I think Jack Carty last week, you know, there was some criticism, particularly with the kicks. First game back, it's difficult, uncharacteristic misses from him. So for Connacht tonight, they've got to build a little bit of pressure, try and manage the game and the tempo of the game. Sometimes it's very difficult to stop Leinster, and they've started like a steam train this year with their results and their performances. But last week, I think the Sharks exposed a few. You know, if you hold on to the ball for long periods against teams who are usually very dominant against you, well, you can create some opportunities. And Connacht are an ambitious side, but I think they need, you know, they need to be careful now, because psychologically, getting up for that game last week, the challenge is, can they get that same emotional pitch this week? Because the reality here is this Leinster group can put 20, 30 points on anyone if they click. And they'll have guys in that team who were really determined to be in Leo Cullen's side going forward. So it's an intriguing one.
Can I just ask you a last one from me, Quinny, on a lot's been made this week of the Irish women's team, and congratulations to them getting the World Cup, but there's been a bit of fallout from the dressing room videos. And look, Kenny Cunningham was on the show during the week in the evening, and he was kind of referencing when they qualified for the World Cup in 2002 that, you know, there was no cameras in the dressing room, and it kind of has brought up this idea of I guess, the discussion around dressing room culture. And look, I'm not going to ask you what type of songs you lads would have sang in dressing rooms over the years, but it certainly brought up an interesting discussion on what should and shouldn't be revealed about the inner workings of a dressing room, I guess.
There should be no cameras in dressing rooms. That's your private space, and I always felt that, you know, and I know the TV providers, and I work for a few, and I do commentary, and if I'm up in the commentary box in New Zealand for Sky and I'm looking down and I can see into the dressing room, you know, the coaches at halftime, I like that. Or if I'm with Virgin Media and doing it for Six Nations, you see. But I always had a problem with that camera sitting in the corner, and that's from a TV point of view, so I would throw a towel over it or something like that.
Vera Pauw did say it wasn't about, I thought it was a credible line, she said it wasn't about whether it was shot or videoed or not, it was the fact that it happened.
Yeah, that's fine, but come here, did you think the Munster team never sang Sean South from Gary Owen back in the day? Do you know what I mean? Like, sometimes you don't even think of the significance or how that can offend somebody else. This thing was played out, it was the Celtic song, it's you know, of course it has to be addressed, but it was a minor kind of judgment really here. And I think now if they were if it was the men's senior team and, you know, they're fully paid professionals and they're all on decent money and playing, you know, they'd get more flack for it. So there needs to be a bit of a break here. But, you know, there's always a danger in the dressing room. It's the same now for players going out and about. You know, there's camera phones everywhere, people record it. If two players actually have an argument in a pub who are on the same team, which is no big deal sometimes, or a debate, there'll be someone there with a camera, and suddenly that'll be big breakup of such and such a team. So, yeah, the inner workings of the dressing room needs to stay there. But, part of me goes, who the hell put this up online?
It went up by one of the players, did an Instagram live of the celebrations.
Yeah, you see, it's bad management there. You know, going back to Vera Pauw, it shouldn't have happened. Well, my thing, it shouldn't have been going out there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'd have a lot of time with the fact that she said it shouldn't have happened,
business.
And regardless whether it was shot or not.
How many times will that song? It's sang every week in Parkhead.
No, that's
60,000 people.
In my view, but there we go. The song I couldn't give two hoots about the lyrics, those specific lyrics.
Was there the same furore made when Declan Rice was quoted saying up the Ra?
Well, nobody knew about him, and it was an underage thing, and like people have referenced it a bit over the last few weeks. You're saying there's a hypocrisy
recently. No, but I think, yeah, of course. I'm not saying it's right, but it would frustrate me if we were singing a song and in a dressing room and someone is streaming it live. You know what I mean? I think that stuff should.
I think everybody's learned a lesson on that front. Anyway, at least probably won't happen again.
Keep your phones away there in the dressing room for sure.
Thanks, million.
Cheers.
Enjoy the games over the weekend. Alan Quinlan in studio as always there on a Friday morning.